Last week, something shifted in AI that should make every developer, founder, and business using AI tools pay attention. Not because one model won one benchmark, not because a new chatbot looked impressive in a demo, but because the AI coding market is starting to move from a race about raw intelligence into a race about cost, control, workflow, and access. 3 stories made that shift hard to ignore. New Chinese open-weight coding models started putting pressure on the economics of AI coding. SpaceX moved to acquire Cursor, one of the most important AI coding tools in the world. And OpenAI began preparing a major upgrade to chat's voice experience, which could change how people interact with AI altogether. At first, those stories look separate. One is about Chinese models, one about a developer tool, one about voice. But underneath, they point to the same question: who actually owns the way people use AI? For the last few years, most of the attention has gone to the model leaderboard. Which model is smartest? Which one scores highest? Which one writes the best code, answers the hardest question, or solves the trickiest reasoning problem? That still matters, but it is no longer the whole game. Because in real workflows, the best model is not always the most useful model. The useful model is the one that is good enough, affordable enough, reliable enough, and available when you need it. That is why the new Chinese open-weight coding models matter. Models like Kimi from Moonshot AI and GLM from Z.AI being positioned as cheaper, open alternatives for serious coding workflows. They are not just trying to answer programming questions. They are targeting agentic coding, where an AI system reads a repository, understands the structure, plans a change, edits multiple files, runs tests, fixes errors, and keeps working until the task is complete. That kind of workflow is powerful. It is also expensive. A normal chatbot response may use a manageable amount of tokens. A coding agent can burn through far more. It needs context, reasoning, tool calls, revisions, and long outputs. Run that once, and the cost may not seem dramatic. Run it across a team, across multiple repos, every day, and the economics become very real. This is where cheaper open-weight models become interesting. The point is not that they have clearly beaten Claude or GPT across the board. That would be too strong. The more accurate point is that they appear to be getting close enough in some coding scenarios that the cost difference can no longer be ignored, and that is the real story. Not China's AI has replaced Claude, not GPT is finished. The real story is that the premium for closed frontier models is now being questioned. Until recently, many teams accepted high model costs because the quality gap was obvious. If the strongest closed model performed much better, paying more made sense. But if an open-weight model can deliver a large share of the practical value for a much lower cost, the decision changes. The question becomes less about which model is best in the abstract, and more about which model is best for this task, at this price, with this level of control. That matters especially in coding, because not every coding task requires the strongest model in the world. Some tasks still do. Complex architecture decisions, difficult debugging, security-sensitive changes, and high-level reasoning may still need the best closed frontier models available. But many everyday coding tasks may not. Refactoring, writing tests, explaining files, generating boilerplate, fixing common bugs, creating internal tools, updating documentation. For that work, a cheaper model may be enough. And when you multiply that across a company, the savings can become serious. There is another reason open-weight models matter: control. With a closed API model, you depend on the provider, their pricing, their rate limits, their policies, their regional restrictions, their product roadmap. And sometimes, access can change faster than companies expect. That creates risk. If an engineering team builds its workflow around one closed model and that model becomes restricted, unavailable, or more expensive, the workflow can break. That is not just a technical issue, it is a business risk. Open weight models may reduce some of that risk. A company may be able to host the model itself, fine-tune it, route sensitive code internally, control deployment, and avoid deeper vendor lock-in. That does not mean every company should immediately switch to open models. It means every serious team should start testing them, because the smartest AI strategy is no longer choosing one model and trusting it forever. The smarter strategy is routing. Use the strongest model where the task truly requires it. Use cheaper models where they are good enough. Use open models where control and privacy matter. Use closed frontier models where maximum reasoning quality matters. That is where AI coding is going. Not one model, a model portfolio. And that brings us to Cursor. Cursor is not just another code editor. It has become one of the clearest examples of what AI-native software development looks like. Developers do not only use it to write code faster. They use it to understand unfamiliar code bases, ask questions about files, generate changes across projects, debug issues, review logic, and turn natural language into software changes. Cursor is not simply a tool, it is a workflow layer. That is why the reported SpaceX move to acquire Cursor matters. At first, it sounds strange. Why would a rocket company want a code editor? But when you look at where AI is going, it makes more sense. The most valuable layer in AI may not be the model by itself. It may be the place where people use the model every day. Cursor sits directly inside the developer workflow. It sees what developers ask for, what they accept, what they reject, where AI helps, where AI fails, and what kinds of tasks repeat again and again. That kind of workflow data is valuable because real software work does not happen inside a benchmark. It happens inside messy projects with real constraints, real bugs, real deadlines, and real human judgment. If you want to train better coding agents, that is the world you need to understand. That is what makes Cursor strategically powerful. It controls distribution, it controls workflow, and potentially, it creates a feedback loop for improving coding models. This is why the AI coding market is shifting. The winner may not simply be the company with the highest benchmark score. The winner may be the company that owns the daily workbench. Microsoft has GitHub and VS Code. OpenAI has ChatGPT and API distribution. Anthropic has strong coding models. Google has Gemini and cloud infrastructure. Cursor has become one of the most important AI-first coding environments. So when a major AI-connected company wants more control over the coding workflow, Cursor becomes an obvious target. But there is a real tension here. Cursor became popular partly because it was flexible. Developers could use different models depending on what they preferred. Many teams liked that they could route work through Claude, GPT, or other systems. If Cursor becomes more tightly connected to one company's model ecosystem, users will ask a serious question. Will Cursor remain model agnostic, or will it slowly push users toward one default model? That matters because developers do not only care about features. They care about trust, privacy, model quality, cost, and not being trapped inside one provider's ecosystem. Again, the pattern is the same: access, control, workflow, cost. The same forces pushing companies to test open-weight models are also making them cautious about depending too heavily on one AI coding platform. Now the third story, OpenAI's voice strategy. At first, voice may seem less important than coding models or a major acquisition, but it could become one of the most important interface shifts in AI. Right now, most people still use AI by typing. They write a prompt, wait for an answer, read it, then type again. That works, but it is not how humans naturally communicate. Real conversation is fluid. People interrupt. They clarify. They react. They change direction halfway through a thought. They ask follow-up questions before the first answer is even finished. Most AI voice assistants still feel like turn-taking. You speak. The AI waits. The AI speaks. You wait. That is not a real conversation. It is a polite audio version of a chat window. A more advanced voice model could make AI feel less like a tool and more like a live collaborator. You could talk through a coding problem while looking at your screen, review notes while walking, plan a video out loud, work through a research problem in real time, build an automation by describing what should happen step by step. Instead of typing every instruction, you could think with the AI. You could interrupt it. It could adjust. You could change direction. It could respond naturally instead of freezing or restarting the whole exchange. That changes the experience. And strategically, it matters because whoever owns the best AI voice interface may own the next major way people interact with AI. For OpenAI, this is not just a product upgrade. Text-based ChatGPT is already powerful. But if voice becomes a default interface for everyday users, the voice experience needs to feel as intelligent and natural as the text experience. Otherwise, the product feels split. Smart when you type, less natural when you talk. A better voice system could close that gap. And now the larger picture becomes clearer. Chinese open-weight models are putting pressure on cost and control. Cursor represents the battle to own the developer workflow. OpenAI's voice work points toward the next interface layer. 3 different moves. Same direction. The AI industry is moving beyond the model alone. A powerful model with high cost may be difficult to scale. A great model with weak distribution may never become the default. A strong model trapped behind one interface may lose to a slightly weaker model embedded directly into daily work. And a model that can be removed, restricted, or repriced creates risk for serious companies. That is why the next phase of AI will look different. The early phase was about capability. Who had the smartest chatbot? Who scored highest on benchmarks? Who could write the best answer? Who could solve the hardest coding problem? That phase is not over, but it is no longer enough. The next phase is about economics and deployment. Can the model be used affordably? Can it run inside real workflows? Can companies control it? Can developers trust it? Can users interact with it naturally? Can it become part of daily work instead of a novelty? For people using AI tools, the practical takeaway is simple. Do not chase every benchmark headline. Benchmarks are useful, but they are not your workflow. A model can score well on a public test and still fail on your codebase. Another model can look weaker on paper and still be good enough for most of your daily tasks. So, the best move is not blind switching. The best move is structured testing. Take your real work, your real repository, your real content workflow, your real automation process, your real customer support tasks, then compare models on what actually matters: accuracy, cost, speed, reliability, privacy, context handling, tool use, error recovery, and how often a human needs to step in. That is how serious teams will choose AI models going forward, not by hype, not by one chart, not by one viral post, by workflow performance. This is also why open-weight AI deserves attention. Not because open models automatically beat closed models. They do not. Closed frontier models still have real advantages in many areas. But open models are becoming good enough to change the economic calculation. And when something becomes good enough, cheaper, and more controllable, it forces the market to adjust. We have seen this pattern before in software, cloud infrastructure, and open source development. Now it is happening in AI coding. The companies that understand this will stop asking, which model is best? They will ask a better question. Which model is best for this specific workflow, at this specific cost, with this specific level of control? That is the more mature question, and it is the question more developers, creators, and businesses need to start asking now. So no, the honest takeaway is not that China has already replaced Claude. That is too simple. The honest takeaway is more important. AI coding is becoming cheaper, more open, more competitive, and more workflow-driven. Closed frontier models still matter, but their pricing and access are now under pressure. Open-weight models are no longer just research experiments. AI coding tools are becoming strategic platforms, and voice may become the next major AI interface. The AI industry is growing up. The winner will not simply be the company with the biggest model. The winner will be the company that makes AI useful, affordable, reliable, and deeply embedded into how people actually work. And for anyone building with AI, that points to one practical move: start testing your workflow now. Because the next advantage will not come from knowing which AI model is trending. It will come from knowing how to use the right model, in the right workflow, at the right cost, before everyone else catches up.